The hardships of nature were all part of Hope's daily existence. One bad fall tore a cartilage in her leg. It left her no option but to crawl back to the van, strap her leg with a pony harness, and survive the 3 weeks until she could walk again. Sometimes, in the Arctic cold of a severe winter, frost would form inside the caravan and the stream would freeze over. Twice a day, Hope would take an army trenching tool and break the ice to reach the trickle below. But Ferny Ball wasn't Hope's first home on Exmoor. That was at Blackford near Porlock.
What a wild, desolate spot, isn't it, out here?
Well, there's plenty more wild and desolate spots. From first light until, I suppose, late afternoon, evening, about an hour ago now, the sun would have been shining all day on the front of the cottage.
So this was your first home on Exmoor, then?
Well, the first with 4 walls. Other than caravans. Well...
And how long were you here, then?
Oh, I can't really remember. What? Have a look at it from the edge here. There's no point going further down, you don't get any better view. It's a wonderful little spot down there. The deer used to come in on the little mead just outside there, and they'd graze there like a herd of Jersey cattle.
So they weren't bothered by you, then?
No. In the autumn, there'd be a big stag usually take up his position in the little bit of woodland there, and I'd hear him roaring.
And what did you do all day when you were there?
What I've always done since I've been on Exmoor, apart from gardening and other such necessary physical things, walk, draw, paint, write.
And what a perfect place for inspiration.
'Tis indeed.
Were you sad to leave here?
Yes.
And when did you start writing, then? Were you writing here?
The first book was Living on Exmoor. Then I was at Ferny Ball 25 years, and I wrote 2 more books there. Well, I'd written a little history of Exmoor before that. Then there was the Moorland Year, and Wild Harvest.
I get the feeling that Ferny Ball was probably your favourite place.
I think it was the place I loved most.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know, it's difficult. You can't give reasons for these things. Remember, 2 things come to us unbidden, love and hate, and we have no say in it.
What did you do for fuel there?
Anywhere that I've been, just get it. I've never yet found a farmer who wouldn't let me collect some brushwood or any lying wood anywhere. So I always got a wood pile together used to drag it home and then saw it up, and a good fire to sit by. They say wood like that keeps you warm 3 times. With dragging it home is one warm journey. The second one is when you saw it up, and the third is when you sit in front of it. It was a lovely situation at Ferny Ball, but it was my own, you see. I bought it, and therefore it was my own independent home. I could do what I liked with it, and it was home.
So that was very important to you?
That's very important. Mind you, I won't be a hypocrite in this matter. I won't say that what I've had is what I've wanted. It's what I've been able to have, and I've made the best of it, and found much consolation in it. But you mustn't think of me, as I'm afraid some people do, as some idealistic get away from it, nature lover. Although I do love nature.
But it's been very important to you, though, hasn't it?
It's been very important.
Because you've recorded it, you've written about it, you've painted it. So it's obviously had a grip on you, hasn't
Yeah.
it?
At Poole Bridge, I asked Hope about her writing.
I've always kept a journal. I like writing down things, bits and pieces about the things that have interested me and that I've noticed in the world around me, which is the world of nature.
Was this a diary then, an everyday
I
record? Or?
suppose you would call it a diary, but I call it a journal because it might consist of long extracts, according to how I felt and what I had made me feel like it. Well then, one day, going through the stuff, I suddenly had an idea. I thought some bits of this pieced together might make a book, since it was the record more or less of the year on Exmoor. And so I picked out the pieces that I thought were relevant or interested me, and I sent the resulting manuscript to Dents, and surprisingly they took it and published it.
And what was the title of that
That
book?
was the first bit, then that one, Living on
Exmoor,
the first edition. Well then, after that, I did settle down consciously to write a book. I wrote what is entitled A Little History of Exmoor, but we don't seem to have got a copy here today, which was just that, a simple, concise story of Exmoor since the beginning, from prehistoric days onwards. Because in those days there was nothing of that nature to be bought, only a few very heavy historical books, of no use to me little general reader. Then, let me see, what was the next book? I think it was this one, Wild Harvest. That was written at Furniball, and that was simply, I suppose you would say, an account of my life through the year there. Then after a while, I pieced together bits and pieces about Exmoor, giving a record of wild nature through the year, and that became one you've got there, I think, a moorland year, which is just that, an account of the seasons and the creatures and things you find and as the year goes by. And West Country Books, the Exmoor Press they call themselves, published that. Then with this little thing, I published, if that's the word, for myself.
Well, this amuses me no end. Yards, gallons, and golden
I got
sovereigns.
so incensed about the total going over to the metric system, causing us to lose all the traditional weights, measures and currency of the centuries that were so essentially English and as much part of our history as folklore and even nursery rhymes. I got quite a lot done, and they cost me about 50 pence each in the layout, so I sold them when I could, saying that 50 pence would cover me for my expenditure, and anything they liked to give me over and above the 50 pence, I would give to Save the Children Fund.
That's very kind.
And at that rate, I did sell quite a lot.
Is this anti-Brussels then?
Yes,
Very much so.
yes.
I'm no horseman, but I read somewhere the other day that they were going to change the way that you measured a horse or a pony. You know, we did it by hands, didn't
Yes.
we? One after another.
Yes.
So Exmoor is about 12 hands,
average
isn't it?
men's fists go to a foot, and three feet to a yard, and so on and so forth. It all goes one into the other, and the average man's thumb width is the inch, you see, and 12 of those 4 of those make the hand, or 12 make the foot, and so on and so forth.
So how would Brussels have us measure an Exmoor pony then?
I have no idea. I know how I measure it, and that's 12.5 hands for a mare, and allowing the extra inch, 12.3 for a stallion.
I'm a photographer, and I have to confess I cannot draw, so I admire the little drawings that appear in your books. Describe to me, what's the difference?
The difference between drawing and photography? Well, the result is entirely different. The photograph is a mechanical, flat image. The camera's done its best, but that's as far as it can go. But the drawing, somehow there's more in it than that. Well, to start with, since the human eye sees differently to the camera, the proportions are in actual fact different, even though one has striven to be accurate and not to exaggerate. The eye sees them differently, you see. And added to that, somehow one draws with personal perception, which is to say with emotion.
There's one here, you see, which I absolutely adore in this book, Cumberland Year. And anybody that knows anything about deer, this is hinds crossing a stream. And I always think hinds sometimes, they're like naughty children, aren't they? They sometimes, you know, they come up and look at you, you know, their ears pricked up, watching you. And there's a little bit of humour in this drawing, isn't there? Isn't there?
Yeah.
They cross the stream and then they've noticed you.
Yeah.
One's noticed you.
Noticed
Turn
you.
back.
Hesitating.
Hesitating.
While the others go wandering on up the clean.
But were you there sketching? Did you see that scene? Or was it just imprinted onto your
I
mind?
think it's imprinted on my mind. There's 2 ways, you see, in which you draw. One way is you sit down, as we are sitting today, but instead of taking the scene with the camera, you take it with a pencil and paper, and you draw as literally as you can what you see. Although, as I say, there's a lot more than that goes into it. The other way is to commit what you see to memory. Shut your eyes and commit it to memory. Then when you get home, think about it and recreate it.
And away you go.
And away you go. Now, for drawing landscapes, backgrounds, you need to be out of doors and drawing with it in front of you, as you would if you were taking a photograph. But for animals, you have got to do it from memory, because, except in a very rare instance, they don't stand long enough to be drawn.
No.
Just a quick, like you mentioned the hind, just a quick stop and the head up and then gone.
But you remember it.
But that moment goes into your brain, and you can hold it there for at least 12 hours before other scenes chase it away for good. So what you do is to draw it afterwards from memory.
And there's one more which I want to talk about, which I adore. It's this one here. Because, again, I've seen this time and time again. Often when you're coming down from Dunkery and you look back on one of those moody days, you know, and then suddenly these hills, they're brooding. And you've caught that in that picture, haven't you?
Well, I can tell you again exactly where that is. That is drawn just below the foot of Kell Castle. Kell Castle is just up here. And that is the valley of the Bow. And this is the great cleave that comes down from what is called Horsens Point. And I've seen the hounds in the valley there often enough. And the huntsmen above them, but not going to because of the craggy rocks and the bog that is below. It's a scene I've seen so many times.
Very characteristic, isn't it? This is the way they snake their way down. But I tell you, what I like is the way you've just caught the top of the cleave. You know, often when it goes to dark before it hits the skyline.
The light and shadow on the big hills is something, the game that is specifically Exmoor.